things heating up in the bubble with the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, plus some late game drama in the NFL, and Texas Longhorns headed to Lubbock play Tech this weekend. This is the 1-0 Sports Show.
Texas finally 1-0, finally riding for the brand, although Tom Herman did say they were 1-0 10 times last season.
Feinbaum, I'll give him like half a point.
Dude, you like okay. Feinbaum way too much.
Yeah, all right. I'm like
you're
I'm the Feinbaum of this show.
By the way, that looks Ohio State. Is that an omen? Give me that Longhorn hat.
Oh man!
Hook him, baby.
All right, he's pulling the Corso.
Hello and welcome in to the 1-0 Sports Show. Thanks for joining us on your Friday morning. I'm your host, Thomas Fitch, and I'm joined by our analysts, Jason Knatter and Olivia Guzman. Guys, thanks for joining us this morning.
Anytime. Yeah, thank you for having us.
So we're going to start off, as we always do, with who's hot and who's not. And Jason, we're going to start with you. Who's hot this week?
Who's hot? Miami Heat. Tyler Hero with 36 points last night. 2 nights ago, actually, in the Game 4 win. They're up 3-1 with the chance to clinch tonight against the Celtics. I think they do it. Go to the finals. Miami Heat, no pun intended, red hot.
They're red hot. We're going to be talking about them in just a second. Olivia, who's hot for you?
Who's hot for me is the Tennessee Titans. You know, they're one of the NFL's 2-0 teams, and I think that right now they are going to lead the AFC South, and they look good. Mike Vrabel is their head coach. He's doing a really good job running their team, and they look to be really solid this season.
Yeah, Ryan Tannehill off to probably a better start than a lot of people thought. And honestly, the story, we talked about it last week, Stephen Gostkowski, who's been all over the place, went 1 for 4 last week, but made the game winner. Then this past week, missed an extra point, but had 2 field goals, including another game winner. So they're all over the place. But Olivia, you're right. They're looking really good. Jason, who's not hot?
Atlanta Falcons. Week 1 got absolutely slammed by the Seahawks. That score made the game look a lot closer than it actually was. And then week 2 on the flip side, led by a ton with 5 minutes left against the Cowboys, coughed it all up, let an onside kick roll 10 yards, and the Cowboys were able to recover it and kick the game-winning field goal right in their faces. So the Atlanta Falcons are anything but hot right now, and honestly, I don't think it could get any worse for them.
Yeah, that onside kick was brutal. It was one of those where you just watched it roll and you're like, what are they thinking? And they just let it roll right past them. That was crazy. Olivia, who's not for you?
As someone who's grown up as a diehard fan my entire life, it pains me to say that the Houston Texans are not looking too hot this season. I think they are, sticking with the AFC South, you know, they are an 0-2 team in the NFL, and I think you can excuse their week 1 loss against the reigning Super Bowl champs. But, you know, when you go 0-2, it's just not off to a good start. And they lost. I think no one was expecting DeAndre Hopkins to be as big of a loss as they was. But on the Texas offense, you have Fuller trying to fill the spot of Hopkins, and it's not working for them. So I think it's going to be another sad Texan season.
Yeah, it's Houston kind of they were riding high in the summer. They had the Rockets looking good. They had the Astros, but now the Astros are barely sneaking in the playoffs. Rockets are out of the postseason, and the Texans are 0-2. Now, to be fair, starting against the Chiefs and Ravens are tough.
Yeah.
But Olivia, do you think, at what point do you think that people are looking at Bill O'Brien and saying he needs to get out of Houston and be fired?
You know, I've been saying it for 3 seasons now that he's just not what we thought he was going to be. You know, when Bill O'Brien came to Houston, everyone was so excited. But he just has not had the results that anyone from Houston wants. And I think that the Texans making him the head coach and the general manager just was not the best decision. I'm thinking that if he has another poor season, we've been saying it for every season now, but this might be the season that he gets the boot.
Jason, do you agree? You think this could be his last season?
I 100% agree. I believe that the AFC South is like perennially the easiest division to win in all of football. And year in and year out, the Texans tend to make it a closer division than it has to be. I just think, yeah, parts of the offense struggling are excusable, but whose fault is that exactly? Bill O'Brien for trading DeAndre Hopkins. So you need to look at the source of the problem. If it's the players on the field, well, your coach is actually also your general manager. So anything that happens on the field, he gets twice as much blame as he normally would. So I absolutely think that if they miss the playoffs, he should be fired.
I mean, I
Some
think it's something that I
Go
think
ahead.
it's something when you have Watkins as your quarterback, or Watson as your quarterback, the team should be so much better than they are making out to be. So I think it starts from the coaching staff, because the players on the field should work and they're not. So I think you got to look at the coaching and see that's where the problem lies.
Yeah, it really feels like when Deshaun Watson's on the field, he's having to do absolutely everything just to try to have the team in a chance where they can win the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sounds like all agreement here, but right now we're going to try to see if we can get some debate going. It's time for Embrace Debate. That's right, we're bringing it up a little earlier on in the show, and we're headed back with the NFL. So Patriots, they're 1-1, beat the Dolphins week 1, lose to the Seahawks week 2, but a close game. The question is, are the Patriots better off without Tom Brady? Cam Newton looked pretty good through 2 weeks. What do y'all think? Olivia, we'll start with you.
I think it's too early to tell. Tom Brady is also 1-1, and so Tom Brady and the Patriots both having a 1-1 season right now. I think that it's really too early to tell. I think the whole Brady Belichick divorce, if you will, is going to be something that is super interesting to watch play out. I mean, Bill Belichick, he's a football computer. His mind is unmatched for the way he can organize a team. So I think that Cam Newton is a great asset to the Patriots, but I think it's too early to tell if they're better or worse off right now.
Jason, do you agree?
First off, they're absolutely worse off because Tom Brady is one of the, if not the absolute greatest quarterback in NFL history. Now, that's not to say that the Patriots still aren't a good team with Cam Newton. It is way too early to tell how good the offense is going to end up being. But against the Seahawks, and the Seahawks defense is typically pretty good, Newton looked good, especially in the system, which that was what I wanted to look for the most, was how a run-first quarterback would adapt to a pocket passing system. So, no, straight up there, not better without Tom Brady, but that doesn't mean that they can't be good with Cam Newton.
Obviously it's a little different, but who do you think is going to have a better season between the Bucs and the Patriots?
Bucs, absolutely the Bucs. Absolutely the Bucs. The Patriots, way too many moving parts. The defense is absolutely ravaged with no Dante Hightower and Kyle Van Noy in Miami. I think that the Patriots can have a lot more growing pains. The Bucs, the first game against the Saints, they looked pretty bad, especially in the second half. But Tom Brady will always find a way to win. And I just think that, especially with how the Saints looked against the Raiders in week 2, I think that the Bucs could easily win their division, whereas the Bills are the clear favorite in the AFC East.
Olivia, what do you think about that?
I would agree with that. I think Brady is one of those players where you can put him with any group of or any offense and he's going to deliver. As Jason said earlier, he is one of, if not the greatest quarterback to ever grace the NFL. And so I have no doubt that Brady's going to have a good season. I think that game 1, I don't know if I would say it was a fluke, but I think it was, growing pains. And I think that the Patriots have to completely rebuild an offense around a quarterback that is not like Tom Brady. They're not getting a quarterback who can do exactly what Brady did. So I think that I think Tom Brady's going to have the better season.
Interesting. So it sounds like Tom Brady, not a system quarterback to y'all. We'll have to see what happens in the end of the season. Jason, you brought this up earlier. The Miami Heat are on fire, literally and figuratively, but they're up 3-1. They won game 4 on Wednesday. Game 5 is tonight. But do they have what it takes to put away the Celtics, go to the NBA Finals, and finish it off? Jason, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely, they have what it takes. That team, 1 through 5, matches up so well against the Celtics. The Celtics last night 2 nights ago did not roll out a big man. They had Gordon Hayward, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kemba Walker, Marcus Smart, and Bam Adebayo absolutely ate on the boards. Not to mention how great Hero played. I don't think anybody can stop Tyler Hero shooting. You double him, Jay Crowder's been hitting shots. Duncan Robinson is arguably the best three-point shooter in the NBA. And you have Jimmy Butler all in the center of it. So I think they'll have no problem getting through the Celtics. and then matching up against presumably the Los Angeles Lakers in the finals. It'll be such an intriguing finals to watch with the young guns on the Heat against LeBron and Anthony Davis on the Lakers. I think that of the teams, obviously of the two teams remaining in the East, the Heat have the best shot to beat the Lakers. And I've been saying since the start of the second round of the playoffs, the best remaining team in the East that could beat the Lakers is the Miami Heat because of their shooting, because of the production of Adebayo, and the leadership of Jimmy Butler.
Olivia, what do you think?
I completely agree with that. I think Miami's on a roll right now. They've got the momentum going behind them. And I think for the Celtics, it's really hard to stop a team that has it all going in their favor right now. And so I think that Miami looks really, really good. And just like Jason said, the young talent that the Heat has, I think that they stand a really good chance against the Lakers.
So both of y'all kind of seem to put it out there that y'all think it's going to be the Lakers. So neither of y'all think that the Nuggets have any shot of coming back and being the team of destiny they've been so far?
No. The Nuggets will always make it a series, but the difference between the Lakers and the Clippers is that you have a guy in LeBron who I think really truly wants it game in and game out. Whereas with the Clippers, I would totally question the dedication, especially of Paul George, to win an NBA Finals. So I think, again, Nuggets can make it a close series with the Lakers, but they by no means have what it takes. And if they do end up bringing it to a third consecutive Game 7, that has to wear on a team, especially when you're in the bubble, you're detached from society, you're isolated from – they have some family friends there, but they're isolated mostly from the public. I do not see any scenario in which the Nuggets win this series. They can make it close, but I think that it is surefire Heat Lakers in the finals.
So you don't think that Jamal Murray wants it?
I think Jamal Murray wants it, but if you're going to give me Jamal Murray who really wants it against LeBron James who really wants it, I think anybody in the right mind is going to take LeBron James.
Olivia, you agree with that?
I mean, yeah, you can't ever count LeBron out. And I think that he is the king and you got to go with him always.
Man, I mean, it is hard to argue with that logic. The anti-LeBron in me just wants the Nuggets to win, but we'll certainly see what happens there. Anyways, when we come back, Derek Duke, writer for Heartland Sports, he's going to join us. He's going to talk all about the Texas Tech game this weekend and give us a full Big 12 preview for the season. Stick around. Welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show. And now joining us, Big 12 writer for Heartland Sports, Derek Duke. Derek, thanks so much for joining us again.
I appreciate you guys for having me on tonight.
All right, so let's start. We'll start off with the breakdown of the Texas against Texas Tech game, and then we'll get a more broad Big 12 preview. But first of all, what is there to watch for just in general in this Texas Tech game on Saturday?
I think both offenses are going to have a chance to really shine in this game. It seems like anytime you get Texas and Texas Tech together, there's always going to be some points scored. And then you just throw in the fact that it's in Lubbock, I think makes it even a little bit wackier from that standpoint. I can remember 2 years ago with Texas taking a huge lead in the fourth quarter in Lubbock, and then Texas Tech just storming back within a score late. So it seems like it's always one of those fun games to watch, and there's always a lot of offense. And I think that could be a lot of the same this year between Sam Ehlinger and the offense that Texas has under Mike Yurchik's now that look very explosive against UTEP. And not to mention Texas Tech has a good quarterback in Alan Bowman who's still trying to get his feet underneath them. But they also have some good playmakers at wide receiver. I think they're a very capable offense to put up some points as well. Defensively, they struggled a little bit the other week against Houston Baptist. But I think overall we're going to see a lot of passing yards in this football game on Saturday.
So is the defense really that bad for Texas Tech? Because Houston Baptist is, Tom Herman talked about how they knew that offense is really good, but giving up that many yards and points to a non-FBS team is absurd. So is Texas Tech's defense really that awful?
Well, I'll start off by saying this. A lot of people that I spoke with that are kind of not familiar maybe with the area of Houston itself, even other people in Texas, they had no idea Houston Baptist even had a football team. So that kind of puts it into perspective. what it was going to be like on Saturday and how big of a shock it really was. Texas Tech was the defense last year in the Big 12 that was dead last in pass defense. And then you give up almost 600 yards to a team like Houston Baptist. That is going to be a huge issue for me. Right now, it looks like nothing's changed. And you can honestly make a case to say it looks worse than last year. So for me, that's really an area Texas Tech has to improve on, because if they cannot fix that, I think they're going to be in for a very, very long season in the Big 12. And when your pass defense is that bad, you are susceptible to any kind of team coming in and beating you. Even a team like Kansas can hang around with you if your defense plays that bad.
Yikes. Yeah. Oof. How important is it for Texas to not let this be a close game?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily that important, because I think at the end of the day, when you walk away with the win playing on the road in this conference, I think it's a big accomplishment no matter who you're playing. Even if you're playing Kansas. I mean, a win's a win at this point, and I don't think you can take necessarily any team for granted in this conference, because everybody has weapons at some level, whether it's on defense or at wide receiver or quarterback. There's always going to be a couple players for each team that can be huge different makers in the ball game. Now, with that said, I think the difference between Texas and Texas Tech should be pretty substantial in terms of talent, and not to mention the quarterback of Sam Ehlinger, the talent overall, the offense, the offensive line, the defensive line. Especially to me, I think the biggest difference between these two teams are the defenses. Texas looks to really have a really stout defense under Chris Ash, while Texas Tech, to me, is still trying to find their identity on defense. They're still trying to find pass rushers. They're still trying to get pieces in the secondary. They don't have it quite figured out yet. So I think probably it's going to be really important for Texas to make a big statement, because I think when Tech plays Houston Baptist that closely, I think just the national perception of this game should be Texas blowing Texas Tech out.
Yeah, it's certainly one of those things that, it's a big spread. And for Tom Herman, just to look good for the fan base, you got to win big. But on the Tech side of the ball, who's a player who could stand out and could make it a close game?
Well, it may be obvious choice here, but I think it's going to be Alan Bowman. And when we talk about Alan Bowman in the mix of Big 12 quarterbacks, I feel like he gets a little bit lost, because we want to talk about Brock Purdy, we want to talk about Sam Ehlinger, Spencer Sanders, or even Spencer Rattler for Oklahoma, who's the new freshman. I think he gets lost somewhere in that shuffle, and I think it's fair to say, because if you think about it, he's been playing the last 2 years, but he's been on the sidelines injured more than he has been playing. So the last 2 years for Alan Bowman's been really rocky. He's only playing at maybe 3 or 4 games that I can really think of. And he's had his great moments, and he's had some okay moments. But overall, when you're injured for over a course of 2 seasons, I mean, he really hasn't played a full slate of games since his senior year in high school, which is about 3 years ago now. So I feel like he's still kind of shaking some of that rust off and still kind of getting his feet underneath him. And if he can do that, he's capable of making some great passes. He's a guy that can throw outside the hashes, down the field, whatever it may be. He can be very accurate with the football, and I think he'd be very dangerous as the season goes along, as long as he keeps making his progressions, because right now we just haven't seen it quite all come together yet. But I think when it does, he can be a really, really special quarterback in this conference. And if maybe it's not this end of this year, maybe it's the start of the next year.
So you mentioned how Bowman can make it a close game. What does Tech need to do as a team to win the game? And on the flip side, what do the Longhorns need to do to win the game?
I think for Texas Tech, they're going to have to play some kind of defense. I mean, they can't be standing around. They can't have guys going wide open down the field 20 yards with nobody around it, because for me, when I go back and watch that Houston Baptist game, they were getting beat on just simple routes. It was nothing complicated. And the biggest thing for me that I saw as well was tackling and yards after catch. And I think Texas could be able to take advantage of that, with guys like Tariq Black, with guys like Joshua Moore. So I think for them, it's going to be really kind of keeping everything in front of them and not letting Texas take the top off of their defense and getting those big plays. And for Texas, I think it's going to be pretty simple. I think if they don't turn the football over, I think they're going to have plenty of success on offense. Defensively, kind of the same more or less for Tech. Keep everything in front of you. Don't let Alan Bowman beat you. I think they need to do a good job of trying to get pressure on Bowman, because, like I said, he's still trying to get his feet underneath him. I don't think he's quite all put together yet. So I think if they can rattle Bowman a little bit, I think they'll be fine overall. But again, I think Texas will have some success on offense. I think that's going to be the biggest key if they don't turn the football over.
Yeah, now let's look at the Big 12 as a whole. And obviously, through 2 weeks, it's been absolute chaos. Would you say that it's as much of a two-horse race as it looks right now?
I'll say at this very moment, it's definitely a two-horse race between Oklahoma and Texas. I think Oklahoma and Texas both look great, although, their opponents weren't that great. I mean, Missouri State and UTEP not going to be very good teams this year, but still, they were very dominant in the way they did things. Texas did great on offense. They held UTEP to 3 points. Oklahoma kind of called off the dogs a little bit, and they scored 48 on Missouri State. And I don't even think they scored in the second half, but defensively, they shut them out. So from both teams, to me, looked really solid. I think that's going to kind of continue in Big 12 play. It seems like some of the other teams are still trying to figure themselves out. Iowa State obviously was a team we thought was going to be well. They had some struggles. Oklahoma State, the same kind of thing. So right now, I would say it's a two-horse race between Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah. Do you think that was just like a fluky game between OSU and Tulsa?
I think it was a little bit of both, because I think when I go back and watch the Tulsa-Oklahoma State game, there's two things that really stick out to me. Obviously, the Spencer Sanders injury was a huge one, but the two biggest issues I had were with the staff, and I think they kept things way too vanilla on offense. I think they thought they were just going to line up and bully Tulsa, and Tulsa just loaded that box up and dared Oklahoma State to throw the football once Spencer Sanders got hurt. And to give credit to Tulsa, it worked, because Oklahoma State, with Ethan Bullock in as their backup, they could not do anything through the air. They were not scared of Tylan Wallace on the outside. It was not until Shane Illingworth came in is where Oklahoma State started, throwing deeper down the field and throwing a pass over 5 yards. So for me, it was a little fluky, but again, it's hard to say with how bad some of these teams have looked in the first week where they're trying to put it all together, with practice restrictions and everything like that. So, and this was also a game that should have been played a week earlier, but due to some COVID stuff, it had to be moved back. So I don't feel like Oklahoma State was necessarily ready. And I think even on their offensive line, and that's been a key across the board, across a lot of these Big 12 teams, is I'm watching a lot of the play of these offensive lines, and it still looks like they're not quite on the same page yet.
If you were to have to pick one team, I know you already mentioned that you think it's a two-team race between Texas and Oklahoma, but if you were to have to pick one team to be your dark horse to challenge those two, who would it be and why?
At this point, I would say the other kind of, lower tier team behind Texas and Oklahoma, it'd probably be a toss-up for me for Iowa State and Oklahoma State. And I'm probably going to give the edge to Oklahoma State just because I feel like they have more playmakers on offense. I think when you look at both defenses, Iowa State has a fantastic defense on all levels. Jaquan Bailey on the line, Greg Eisworth at the end of the safety. So they have pieces, it seems like, at every single level. And I think the same kind of goes for Oklahoma State. They have Malcolm Rodriguez at linebacker, Trey Sterling at safety, Colby Harvell-Peel, or Darius Williams at corner. A lot of these defenses have a lot of names. So from that aspect, I think they're pretty even defensively. But for me, what separates those two teams is on the offense. And while you could say, yes, Brock Purdy is probably a better quarterback than Spencer Sanders at this point, I feel like Spencer Sanders has more weapons around him with Chuba Hubbard and Tylan Wallace and Dylan Stoner. So I feel more comfortable with Oklahoma State's surrounding cast more than I do with Iowa State, although Iowa State obviously does have Charlie Kohler, the All-American tight end, but he's still not healthy yet, so we're still kind of checking on the status for him week to week. But right now, I still feel like Oklahoma State has a chance to make some noise. And yes, we don't know how long Spencer Sanders is going to be out, obviously. Shane Illingworth is going to get the start, but right now, they're going to play West Virginia this weekend, and then their next game is Kansas. So, if Spencer Sanders had to be out for a couple weeks, these are the teams to do it against. It's definitely against West Virginia and Kansas, some of the worst teams from last season. You don't want to be playing Texas and Oklahoma right now. So I think when that time rolls around, I think Spencer Sanders will be healthy and ready to go. And from that standpoint, I think I'm going to go with Oklahoma State.
Nice. Yeah. I agree completely with that. So what is your bold Big 12 prediction?
I don't know if I'll say it's crazy bold, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Big 12 had two players go to New York for the Heisman ceremony, if we're even able to have it at this point. But I think it's going to be Sam Ehlinger, and I think Spencer Rattler are going to be two players from the Big 12 that have a real good shot at getting into that Heisman, being Heisman finalists. Beats Oklahoma, obviously, we know what they can do on offense. Obviously, Spencer Rattler's still very, very early in his career, but I like what I saw. I think he has a lot of raw talent that's still being developed. When you look at him throw the football and you look at where Jalen Hurts was throwing the football last year as a senior, I think Spencer Rattler is night and day above where Jalen Hurts was as a passer already as a redshirt freshman. And obviously for Texas, Sam Ehlinger's the guy that's been there for a couple years now. He's got plenty of starting experience under his belt. I think this Mike Yurcich offense is only going to help those numbers of his continue to climb up. And for me, he's gotten better and better each year. And I think that's really one of the keys I like to see out of a senior quarterback.
Yeah, I know we down here in Austin love the idea of Sam making a trip to New York. But that bold prediction actually leads into my next question. And you kind of answered it partially. But question is, who do you think will have a better season between, I guess, the Heisman favorites at the beginning of the year, Spencer Rattler, Sam Ehlinger, and then throwing Chuba Hubbard in there as well?
I'll start by saying this with Chuba Hubbard, and he was a guy that ran for over 2,000 yards this season. Obviously, it's probably not going to happen with the shortened season this year. I would be surprised if he gets over 1,500 yards from the way I saw their offensive line look. I mean, they lost 2 starters before the season even started due to transfers and whatnot, so I think they're going to have to do a whole lot of reshuffling on that offensive line, and I'm not sure it's ever going to quite come together that the way they want it for Chuba to run through some of these holes. Yes, he is talented. Yes, he has breakaway speed. He could be that home run threat. But I see him having a little bit harder time this year than what he did last year. With that said, I think guys like Sam Ehlinger, obviously, like a guy that continues to get better each and every year, especially through the passing game. And I think people mistake him last year as not having as good of numbers. But I think when you look at it overall, he had more yards. His completion percentage went up. Just the rushing touchdowns weren't there, although he ran for more yards than what he did the year before. So I think Sam's going to be able to get those numbers up. I think he's going to get back to running the football in crunch time in the net red zone. I think his numbers are going to be just fine. And then obviously with Spencer Rattler, the Lincoln Riley offense, they have a great offensive line. They have weapons around them, with Theo Howard, Charleston Rambo, Marvin Mims, and a lot of talented sophomores at the wide receiver position. I think just the talent around Spencer Rattler is going to be enough to kind of help him boost up and kind of be one of those great players. But if I had to pick one, I'm probably going to go with Ehlinger, just because of the experience overall. He started for so many years and has much more experience than Spencer Rattler at this point.
Yeah, we certainly hope that that it can be Ehlinger with the better season. So last question. Asked you this last time you were on the show last year, start of the season. You were the first guest ever on the 1-0 Sports Show. But I want to get your Big 12 prediction, and I'm hoping that it's someone different than Oklahoma.
Well, I appreciate being the first guest last year. That's a fact I didn't know, so I do appreciate that. However, I still got to go with Oklahoma. I know I said Oklahoma last year, but for me, it's still until you can knock off that top dog. I mean, I have a hard time taking you out. It's kind of like, and I always kind of put this in perspective for people when I talk about Kansas. I mean, they're like, when you're filling out your Big 12 ballot, it's like Kansas at the bottom and Oklahoma's at the top. That's just the way it is. And until I see any different with either one of those two teams, it's hard for me to move them. Yes, I think Oklahoma had some key pieces missing. If there was any year, I'll say this though, if there was any year for Texas to beat Oklahoma, this would be the year with Spencer Rattler still kind of figuring things out at quarterback. Defensively, Alex Grinch done a great job at Oklahoma, did a really good job of turning it around last season. I don't think they'll be as good maybe as they were at times last year, but I still think overall they have enough talent, especially on that defensive line, to make some noise on defense. Offensively, I think they're going to be better than last year. Maybe not rushing the football because when you think about it, Jalen Hurts was kind of like another running back there. But I think their offensive line across the board's better. The same, even though they lose CD at wide receiver, I think they're deeper overall at the wide receiver position, have some very good young talent. So for me, I'm still going to go with Oklahoma. And a lot of that also has to do with the fact that Lincoln Riley is still calling plays in Norman. Yeah,
I can't blame you. It's kind of like with the Patriots or with Alabama. You got to go with them until they don't win. Anyways, Derek, thanks so much for joining us. For y'all watching, make sure you check out Heartland Sports, the best Big 12 coverage. Follow Derek Duke on Twitter. Good Twitter follow. Can confirm that. But Derek, thanks so much for joining us.
I appreciate you guys for having me on. Thank you so much.
Welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show. Now we're getting back to one of our most popular segments. We did this all the time last year. We were taking questions from you, the viewer, questions from the crowd. You sent in your answers in the comment section. We're going to give you answers. We can't promise if they're going to be good or bad or just confusing, but you're going to get answers, and that is a guarantee. First question, this comes from legendary former TSTV alum Turner Barnes at Turner Barnes 5. He said, which playoff series, we're talking NHL, professional hockey, which playoff series win was most impressive for the Stars? They beat Calgary in the first round, Colorado in the second round, Vegas in the third round. They're currently in the Stanley Cup Finals against the Lightning. So, Jason, we'll start with you. Which of these wins was more impressive?
Absolutely Vegas for me. I'm a lifelong Chicago Blackhawks fan, and my Blackhawks upset the Oilers in the qualifying round. Everyone in Chicago is so excited, and then they just ran into a brick wall with Vegas. Vegas looked unstoppable. Unbelievable goaltending play, great offensive attack. I thought that there was no scenario in which Vegas didn't at least make the finals, and the Stars ended up beating them. So, truth be told, I think that was easily the most impressive series. And you look on paper, yeah, that was a series that brought them to the finals, but that's just the way it lined up with the seeding. And in any series, if they were to beat Vegas, I'd say it'd be the most impressive.
What do you think, Olivia?
I agree. I think it's always just in any sports scenario, the game that leads up to the finals is always one of the games that's most challenging because each team feels that they have the most to lose. And just like Jason said, Vegas looked like an unstoppable team. And the Stars being the ones to take it was really, really impressive for them.
Yeah, I hate to agree with all three of you, but I mean, Vegas just looked like a juggernaut that couldn't be stopped, especially in the Vancouver series before, even when Vancouver kept pushing Vegas later in that series. The Knights looked so much faster. Their defense was so much better. The Canucks goalie had like a game and a half without giving up a goal, and Vegas still was able to win the series. So Dallas being able to do that, to me, was the most impressive thing. Our next question, we're moving from the NHL to the CPBL. It's Chinese Premier Baseball League. I'm not sure, but this is from, obviously, y'all know him, legendary Daniel Shi, Daniel_Shi88, one of our TSTV sports directors. He says, which team will win the hashtag CPBL and why? The Rakuten Monkeys. I'll give anybody $5 if they can name another CPBL team.
No idea. I'm just going to agree with Daniel and say that it'll be the Monkeys.
Olivia?
Yeah, I just hate to say it, but Chinese baseball is not something that gets a lot of my attention. So we're just going to go with what Daniel said.
Yeah, I think y'all are smart. Daniel watches the most. He runs the Twitter for their professional account. So if Daniel says the Rakuten Monkeys are going to win, I say go Monkeys. Up next, our other sports director. This is from Justin Morris at JustinMorris_Texas. This is a fun question. Who has the better new stadium, the Rams or Chargers in LA or the Raiders in Las Vegas? Olivia, we'll start with you.
You know, I think the Rams and Chargers, that stadium's beautiful. If you look at the ceiling with it being, it has the illusion that it's like an open stadium, but it's not with the whole glass ceiling. I think it's aesthetically very, very pleasing.
Yeah, to me, it kind of looks like the like if there was a train station in the capital of the Hunger Games, I feel like that's what it would look like.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I would say that the prettiest new stadium has to be the one in Vegas. I thought that like the fire lit in like the concourse back behind the goalpost is such a cool touch. And just the fact that there's a football team in Vegas is really cool to me. Now they have 2 of the 4 major sport teams, and it really makes me want them to get an NBA team and an MLB team just out of curiosity of seeing what the home stadium would look like.
That would be crazy if they had all those teams. But that is a really cool stadium. I think my favorite part is the fact that the big window on one of the end zones overlooks the strip. I mean, it's pretty hard to compete with that. I don't care what stadium you are, but they did a good job with that. Our next question, this is actually a 2-part question, so we'll go one at a time. From Steve Helwick. Welcome back onto the show, Steve. He says, what adjustments, first of all, we'll start with this first one. What adjustments can the Celtics make to overcome a 3-1 deficit and finally solve and overcome the Heat? Jason, we'll start with you.
They need to shoot the ball better. Against the Toronto Raptors, Marcus Smart reached deep into his bag of tricks and started to nail the three-pointer. He needs to do that again because in order to beat the Heat, you need to beat them at what they're good at, which is three-point shooting. If you can shoot at the same rate as Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Jay Crowder, any of the great shooters on the Heat, then you'll have a chance. And I just haven't been seeing that from the Celtics, especially with Jason Tatum with no points in the first half in Game 4. You cannot have that happen. I don't care if he's going to score 25 in the second half. You need more contribution in the first half. So they need a full 4 quarters of basketball. They need to shoot the three-pointer better, and they absolutely need somebody, whether it be Kemba Walker, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, to step up and be that guy because they have not had that this series.
It kind of feels like what teams were going through when they were playing Golden State at the peak of their dynasty. Olivia, what do you think?
I hate to be this person, but I don't really think there's too much they can do. You know, the Heat's really on a roll right now, and I think that the Celtics, I mean, everything Jason said is completely accurate, but I think that even if the Celtics have one of their best games and everything's on for them, I still think that the Heat has it. So,
would you go so far as to say that the Heat are a team of destiny?
I would. Led by a
Sure.
20-year-old rookie, absolutely.
Yeah, they're looking really good. And yeah, the fact every time I think about the fact that Tyler Hero is younger than me, it always makes me feel bad about what I've done. Our other question from Steve. He said that Oklahoma State was a preseason dark horse college football playoff team because of given its offensive firepower. So how does the 1 touchdown performance against Tulsa affect your view of Oklahoma State in the Big 12? And do they beat West Virginia this weekend? Olivia, we'll start with you.
You know, I don't really think it changed my opinion of them too much. They really impressed me with their first game, but I mean, everyone has an off game, and I think that OSU might have just gone into the game after their first big win thinking that they had it in the bag, and the ball didn't roll in their favor. But I think against West Virginia, I really do think they are the team that's going to come out on top. They do have a lot of experience on the field, and I think that West Virginia I think it's going to be a really good game, but I think that OSU is the team that's going to come out on top.
Jason, what do you think?
I would say that it really didn't change my opinion because Spencer Sanders went down early in the game and the offense didn't get into rhythm until the 4th. So do they beat West Virginia? I think so. But until the offense is healthy, they're not nearly as much of a threat. But if you can give me a fully healthy offense, I think that they're just as much of a threat as they were a month ago.
That is true, but while Spencer Sanders is a huge part of their offense, they still had Tyler Wallace, they still had Chuba Hubbard. They're playing Tulsa. Certainly, they could have scored more than just 1 touchdown.
Absolutely, but when the quarterback goes down, especially a quarterback that has such good chemistry with the team, it's kind of like that shock factor. And I think you really saw that in the second quarter and in the third quarter. The offense really struggled to get into the rhythm. They were just handing the ball off right up the gut, doing short passes. They didn't expand the playbook. And typically you don't expand the playbook against a throwaway opponent until the 4th quarter when they finally did because they realized, hey, we might actually lose this game. So they expanded the playbook. They looked more authentic. They're not going to look fully authentic without Sanders. But nothing really happened in that game with the exception of the plays that they were running right after Sanders got hurt that changed my opinion on the Cowboys.
I can't argue with that analysis. It's way more detailed than I could have given. Well done. Our final question from the crowd. This one's a doozy. It comes from Urban Hermit 12. Says, what winter baseball leagues will be the most interesting to follow this year? Again, $5 to whoever can name a winter baseball league. Jason, we'll start with you.
Okay, actually, I believe Major League Baseball is working on a developmental league for the minor leaguers that didn't have the chance to play this year because the minor league season got postponed. So by default, I'd say that. Otherwise, I'm sure there's some Latin American league that's going to be playing, but I really can't give you a sufficient answer.
Olivia?
I'm just going to have to plead the fifth on this one and just
yeah. I'm going to have to do the same thing, too. I didn't know that there was winter baseball. But again, Jason, I think we're just gonna stick with your answer. The best analysis is with you. Anyways, when we come back, lot of more stuff to get to. We're going to get to what's been trending, and a lot has been trending, including a Chargers doctor and a crazy medical mishap. We're going to get college football playoff picks and all the weekend spread predictions. You're not going to want to miss it. Welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show. Thanks again for joining us on your Friday morning. It's time for everybody's favorite segment, What's Trending, where we look at the best topics we've seen on Twitter or the other social medias. And the first one, this might be the craziest. This might go down as one of the craziest stories of the year. Before the Chargers' last game, Tyrod Taylor, or the medical doctor for the Chargers, actually punctured Tyrod Taylor's lung while trying to administer a pain-killing injection for the quarterback's cracked rib. I mean, it is one of the craziest stories you'll probably ever hear. What is y'all's reaction to that? Olivia, what do you think about that?
I just don't know how that happens. Like, I mean, these guys are professionals, and I mean, I get accidents happen, and this is obviously a freaky thing, but I mean, I think if you're puncturing anything into any athlete right before the game, I think you need to be like as focused in as possible as to what you're doing on the athlete. And I think the fact that, to me, this just screams carelessness. It just blows my mind.
I actually saw something on Twitter that was like some conspiracy that the team doctor did it because he wanted Justin Herbert to be the quarterback. I don't believe that for a second. but yeah, same with like what Olivia thought. Like how do you let that happen? Like how? It's absurd. It's crazy. I'm glad everything's okay with Tyrod. I guess we got to see a good game out of Justin Herbert out of it, but wow, paid medical professional, team doctor doing that. I was so surprised when I saw that. I was just like, what in the heck? I really don't have anything else to say. It's just so absurd, and it's not something that you ever think is going to happen. So there's no playbook for what you're supposed to say for it. So
I cannot imagine the conversation between the Chargers doctor and the head coach of like, hey, so your starting quarterback punctured his lung. It was me. It was an accident, but it happened.
Yeah, I mean, it just is so ironic to me, the fact that they were injecting painkillers, and like that's what happened. Like he just was like, "Oh, I injected painkillers in you. However, you're going to be in so much more pain than this would have ever cured." It's insane.
And what's even crazier is I saw somebody on Twitter tweet about the doctor for the Chargers before this one had 2 DUIs, was raided by the DEA for writing himself 100+ prescriptions, had malpractice for severing a patient's artery, other malpractice lawsuits for other career-ending misdiagnoses, and lost his surgery license in 2013. That's who they had before this guy.
What's happening with the Chargers medical team?
I don't know, but it is absolute chaos. Absolute chaos. Speaking of something that's not absolute chaos, though, Tyler Hero, Jamal Murray, talk about hot shooters. Both have been electric this entire postseason. But Jason, we'll start with you. Who do you think has been the best shooter in the bubble between these two guys?
I would say that it's Tyler Hero. And because it's so close, I'm going to give the edge to Hero, because with Murray, at least it was somewhat expected. He had a really strong postseason last postseason. So, I mean, no, I don't think anybody expected him to go off how he has now. But with Hero, I mean, this is out of left field for most people. 20-year-old rookie out of Kentucky, shooting the lights out of the ball. He doesn't take a shot that he doesn't think he can make. He's taking these turnaround fadeaway jump shots, corner threes, layups, everything. It's unbelievable. I'd say it's Tyler Hero, but Jamal Murray has taken more of the role of the primary scorer, whereas with the Heat, they like to spread the ball out a little bit more. So I'm going to give it to Hero, but you really can't go wrong with either.
Olivia, what's your take?
I'm just going to give it to Tyler Hero just because, I mean, the kid's my age, and what he's doing is just unbelievable. He's had a phenomenal season, and I think that he just is so accurate with like all of his shots, and he doesn't. I mean, as Jason said, he doesn't take a shot he knows he can't take. Yeah, and he's phenomenal when he shoots, and he continues to impress me.
Yeah, I probably would agreed with both of y'all until that last shot that Jamal Murray had in the game on Tuesday against the Lakers. At the end of the game, we saw it earlier. I mean, it was crazy, just super deep, super clutch. But again, I mean, both the guys have been lights out the entirety of the bubble. Speaking about something being out or maybe missing some parts, Bill Belichick the other day in his press conference certainly went with a new look. And so my question for y'all is, what do we think happened to Bill Belichick? We'll go with you first on this one, Olivia. Was he A, attacked by a bear on the way in, B, trying to go for the Kanye shirt look, or C, was that just a shirt that he had in his closet that he just pulled out and thought would be good to wear?
I'm just going to have to go with C on this one. I mean, Bill Belichick does what Bill Belichick wants. He is so established as a head coach, and he knows that he's going to go down as one of the greatest head coaches of all time. The man just does what he wants. And I think that was probably the first shirt he saw, and he was like, yeah, why not? And so, I mean, I think Bill Belichick does not dress. He's not a man that thinks he has to dress to impress. He impresses by what he produces on the field. So, but that's so funny.
Jason, any chance it was a bear attack?
No, I don't think so. But I honestly, I just want to know, like, how did the shirt get like that? Because I don't think he had any problem wearing that. But like, I don't know, like, how those holes came about getting formed, and I can't come up with an explanation. Maybe it was the bear. Maybe I don't know. I genuinely, I have no answer for you. I just say I have mad respect for him for wearing it, and he probably knew that he'd have questions about it, and he probably knew that he was just going to respond with a no comment or not answer the question. And I think that the mutual respect between him and the reporters made it totally okay for him to wear that.
Yeah, it would be peak Bill Belichick for him to be like, honey, I'm going to burn some holes in this shirt just to see what the media says and just try to throw them into a complete uproar, which he did succeed in doing.
I mean, can you imagine what the rest of his staff must have been feeling like when I watched him walk into that interview? I mean, I'm sure that if this had been any other head coach, someone would have tried to stop them. But I think everyone was like, okay, Bill, like, you do you, man. And he probably walks with such a way that's like, do not question what I'm doing. I have a method to my madness. Like, I always know what I'm doing. And so the man he cracks me up. That's so funny to me.
And you're certainly not going to doubt him.
No.
All right, next up, let's get a look at our college football playoff predictions. Obviously, it's early on in the season. A lot of teams haven't even played their first game. But Jason, we'll start with you right now. If the season were to end today, who would you put in your college football playoff?
All right, give me Clemson number one. I think that they're just going to run the table in the ACC. The only real threat for them is North Carolina, in my opinion. Give me Alabama, a one-loss Alabama at number two. Give me an undefeated 8-0 or 9-0 Ohio State at number three, and then give me a one-loss Big 12 champion Texas Longhorns at number four to round out my playoff.
That's pretty good. I will say this. So our first week of the show, it was before the Pac-12 or Big Ten had announced that they were coming back with football. And I put North Carolina in my top four because I thought some conference is going to have two teams. And how much fun would it be to have North Carolina and Texas both in there? But obviously with the Big Ten coming back, that's made me change up mine a little bit. So sorry, Tar Heel fans. Sorry, Mac Brown. It hurt me a lot, but I had to take them out. I got Clemson number one. Again, it's hard to argue. They look really good. They've already started the season. They got 2 wins under their belt. Number two, I have Ohio State. Jason, I agree with you. I think they go 9-0. You look at their conference schedule, really the toughest game, maybe Penn State, maybe Michigan, but I don't think either of those will be a huge challenge for them. Number three, I got Texas at number three. Guys, I'm buying way too high on Texas. I know they're going to break my heart later on this season, but I think Texas runs the table, gets into number three. And then with 4 at Florida, I really think the SEC is going to beat itself up. You finally get a lot of the good teams from the East playing the teams from the West. We're going to have Georgia and Alabama in a not SEC title game setting. I think there's going to be a lot of chaos, and I think somehow Florida escapes in there. And partially, I'm just doing that to have a different team than y'all. Olivia, who's in your top 4?
I think we got to start with Clemson. They've got a dynasty going right now, and I think that you just can't not put them in there. Then I've got Alabama. I know that, Thomas, you didn't have Bama in there, but I think, how can you not put Bama in there? I think you can't bet against them. And so they're definitely my number 2 pick. I think they're going to just dominate the SEC. I do think the SEC will beat each other up, but I think Bama's going to come out on top. Number 3, I got Texas. I can't not put them. They have my heart, and I know they're going to break it, but I think they look really, really good. And I think that if they can just stay healthy and keep their head in the game and not, have stupid mistake games, I think that they're going to look really good. At number 4, I got Ohio State. I think Ohio State is going to dominate the Big Ten. They've done it in the past. I think that I think it's going to be a really interesting playoff given it happens.
Yeah, y'all definitely went a lot more logical than I do. And if y'all watch this, y'all know that number 4 spot in my college football playoff has been like that team notably always. I think I've had Michigan last year, Utah was there, Oregon was there, UNC's been there. So Florida fans, watch out, because that's like the first spot. You don't want to be there.
You just cursed Florida season.
Sorry to all you Florida fans down there in Gainesville, but it's what it is. Anyways, coming up next, weekend spread predictions, NBA, college football, NFL. We got it all. We got your experts, so stick around. For the last time today, welcome into the 1-0 Sports Show. Finally made it to our weekend spread predictions. A lot of good stuff coming up. So we're going to start off. First game we're going to pick, NBA tonight, the Heat and the Celtics. It's a 3-point spread in favor of the Celtics. Jason, we'll start with you. Who do you have?
Give me the Heat +3, Heat money line. I think that the Heat win the final game of the series and advance to the NBA Finals.
As much as I do believe that the Heat are a team of destiny and I think they'll make it to the finals, I think it's a little too soon. I think the Celtics are going to get at least one more game on the Heat before the series is over. Olivia, what do you think?
I'm saying it all show. I think the Heat, they got to take it.
All right, up next, we're going to the college football world, and we have number 3 Oklahoma, huge point favorites, 26.5 against Kansas State. Olivia, we'll start with you. Who's going to take it?
OU. All the way OU is going to take it. They look really, really good, and Kansas State doesn't. So OU's got this one.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Kansas State struggled against Arkansas State, lost against Arkansas State. And while they're going to be looking as this week to kind of rebound, Oklahoma's just got too many weapons. Spencer Rattler especially had that good warm-up game. I got Oklahoma covering the spread big. Jason?
Give me Oklahoma by 1 million. I think Oklahoma is going to run away with this one. Kansas State struggled a lot against Arkansas State. Oklahoma, no problem with Missouri State. Spencer Rattler, give me 5 touchdowns for him. Easy 5-6 touchdown win for Oklahoma.
Wow, bold from Jason.
Bold.
Up next, we got the Tigers from LSU, number 6 LSU, 16.5-point favorites, hosting Mississippi State. Jason, we'll start with you.
I would take LSU outright to win the game, but maybe Mississippi State will make it a little bit closer. LSU's going to win. No Joe Burrow, no Jamar Chase, but Miles Brennan, good enough quarterback. Still have Terrence Marshall, still have some good pieces of the defense. So it's going to be a close cover, but give me LSU -16.5.
Yeah, as much as I want to make what I think is the smarter pick and say Mississippi State's going to hit that +16.5, I can't go against Coach O at this point, and I just got to say, go Tigers.
I think at this point, this early in the season, it's going to be so hard to bet against the reigning national champs. And so I got to go with LSU.
Okay. I will say a little hot take from me. I don't think LSU will finish in the top 10 this season, but that's a topic for another time. Our next game, we have number 15, Oklahoma State, 7-point favorite, hosting West Virginia. Olivia, we'll start with you. Who do you got?
I have OSU. I mean, I know that they had not the best game against Tulsa this past week, but they had a really good first game. I think that if they can get healthy again, I think that this game shouldn't be a problem for them.
Not so fast. I got West Virginia. I don't know if they're going to win, but I think that they're going to cover that 7-point spread. They look good in week one. Granted, it was against a small team, but again, Oklahoma State, I think they've got a lot of confusion, a lot of anger in the locker room. I think West Virginia comes out and surprises people by at least making it a close game. Jason?
I think Oklahoma State giving them only 7 points is an absolute steal. I think that they're going to come out a lot more sharp than they did against Tulsa, and I think that they're going to win by at least 2 touchdowns.
Okay, we'll see what happens there. Up next, number 21 Pittsburgh, 3-point favorites hosting number 24 Louisville. Jason, we'll start with you.
I'm going to take Louisville +3, and I would also take the money line here. I think that Louisville came out really, really flat-footed against Miami, but I think that that was sort of a fluke. I don't think that Pitt is as good as advertised. They've played Austin Peay and they've played Syracuse. So this will be their first real competition. Last year, they were a fringe bowl team. Louisville looked a little bit better last year. Both teams returning a lot of their main pieces. Give me Louisville in a close one.
I'm going to have to disagree here. I do think you bring up a good point that, Louisville is a better team than how they looked against Miami. But I do think in this game, I think Pittsburgh, they got 2 games under their belt. They're warmed up. And I think this is the game where they can go and show that they're more than just a team that can barely sneak into a bowl game. Olivia?
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, Thomas. I think that this is going to be a really good game, and I think it's also going to be a close game. But Pittsburgh's the home team, and I think that has an advantage, even with the limited capacity in the stadiums. I do think that being the home team, having home field advantage, is going to work in their favor for this game.
Up next, number 23 ranked Kentucky Wildcats traveling down to Auburn, Alabama, playing the Auburn Tigers. Auburn, a 7.5-point favorite. Olivia, who do you have?
I have Auburn. Again, I mean, they look good. I think I got to go with them.
Good pick. Auburn Tigers. Look, I am riding high on Auburn. Honestly, if there's a team other than Florida that I think could be a dark horse to win the SEC, it's Auburn. Gus Malzahn, I remember a couple years ago when there was talk of firing him. Then he came out, had a good season. That man knows how to coach, and he's going to have this team ready to play. Jason?
Yeah, I'll make it 3 for 3 with Auburn. I think that they're a much better team than advertised. Of course, we're losing Derek Brown on defense, but Bo Nix is back for a second year. Kentucky, I'm not totally sold on, not quite sure why they're ranked. They always put up a solid team, but they don't put up much of a fight against Auburn this weekend. Give me Auburn -7.5.
Up next, the college game day, or sorry, not the college game day game, not yet. Number 22 Army traveling to number 14 Cincinnati. Battle of the group of 5 teams. 13.5-point favorite Cincinnati is. Jason, what do you have?
I'm going to take Army. I believe Cincinnati's running back is out for the game. Army is a triple option offense, so they will always control the possession and the flow of the game. So I don't think Army wins this one outright, but I believe it was last year where they had a close game with Michigan, and the year before they had a close game with Oklahoma. So they are very good at sticking with good teams, control possession of the game. I think that 13.5 is a really, really wide spread. So give me an Army to cover and give me Army to keep it close. Maybe Cincinnati to win the game, but I certainly like Army as my lock of the week.
That's another good pick. I didn't know that Cincinnati's running back is out. But even regardless of that, like you said, Army loves to slow down the game. Just getting to 13.5 points against them sometimes can be tough, the way that they slow it down and they can just win that time of possession. So I do think Cincinnati wins. I agree with you, but I do think that Army's gonna cover that spread. Olivia?
I got to agree with both of you. I mean, I think that 13.5 is a big spread, and I think that Army is going to make it a closer game than that. But I do think Cincinnati, again, I said it earlier, they are the home team. I think that plays a big factor when you are the home team in a close game. So I got to go with Cincinnati.
All right, here, finally, our college game day game. Florida State, traveling to number 12, Miami. Just had that big win against Louisville last week. Miami favored by 11 points. Olivia, can Florida State pull off the upset?
I think that no. I'll just say it. No, I think I have Miami winning this game. They look good. They had a big win against Louisville, and I think that they're going to do it again this week.
Good pick. Last year, I said that Tallahassee and Florida State is a dumpster fire. It's the exact same thing this year. They're just traveling downhill. I got Miami winning big. Jason?
And I will make it 3 for 3 with Miami. Florida State's head coach is going to be out with COVID-19. So give me Miami. I would take them straight up already. Derek King is an unbelievable quarterback. Looked so good against a good Louisville defense. So Miami minus 11.
All right, let's move on to our game. Number 8, Texas, traveling up to Lubbock. There will be a lot less tortillas being thrown in the stands, but Texas still an 18-point favorite. Jason, who do you have?
Texas minus 18. Put the house on this one. I cannot emphasize enough. It is going to be a shootout, but when you give up 600 yards of offense, Houston Baptist, that really makes me intrigued and really excited actually to see what Sam Ehlinger and a real offense are going to do to that defense. So I think Texas wins this one easily by 3 scores and maybe even more.
The first week when Texas played UTEP, the spread was 43 points. I said Texas only covers, they win by 50. This week, I say Texas not only covers, they win by 30. Maybe not quite as much as UTEP, but they're winning big, and they're going to go home 2-0. Olivia, who do you think takes this game?
I'll make it 3 for 3 with Texas. I mean, the Tech secondary just doesn't stand a chance against Sam and his plethora of receivers he's got going from. He's got many weapons in his pocket, and I just think that it's going to be a little bit of a bloodbath for Tech. So I got to go with Texas.
All 3 Texas. I certainly hope that all 3 of us are right about that. Now let's go to the NFL for our last game, the Sunday night football game. Packers at the Saints. Saints coming off a loss last week. The Green Bay Packers looking pretty good. Everybody's calling this Aaron Rodgers revenge tour. Jason, we'll start with you, but I don't know if you're allowed, as a Chicago native, I don't know if you're allowed to pick the Packers.
No, I'd take the Saints anyway. I think the last week against the Raiders might have been a little bit of a fluke. I think that they are among the best in the NFL when it comes to adjusting week by week. Packers have played the Vikings and Lions, not exactly top-tier competition, so Saints minus 3.
I was going to pick the Packers, but you completely swayed me. Let's go Saints. Olivia, who do you have?
When I was thinking about this, you just got to look at, and I've said it many times already, but the Saints are the home team, and I think definitely in the NFL, being the home team is just a whole new ball game, and I think it's going to be a really exciting game. I think this is going to be a game that it's a Sunday night game, and I think that that's the perfect time slot for it because it's going to be a great game against 2 great quarterbacks, but I got to go with the Saints.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Should be an absolutely exhilarating weekend of sports. So much happening from you got the NHL Stanley Cup, you got the bubble happening with the NBA, NFL, college football, a lot of stuff to look forward to. But for us, that's all we got for you this week. Make sure you tune in next week. Again, Fridays at 10 every week. And make sure to check out our sister shows, College Press Box on Monday nights and College Crossfire Wednesday nights at 9. And for Jason, for Olivia, for myself, Thomas Fitch, Robert Trevino has been directing it. For everyone, have a good night.